There is a moment right before someone decides to obey you where nothing is said, no command is given, no threat is made, and yet the decision is already over. You have seen it happen to other men. You have felt it happen to yourself in reverse, the sudden involuntary shrinking in the presence of someone who never raised his voice. This is not charisma. It is not authority in the way you were taught to understand it. It is a signal, a quiet, almost invisible signal that the body reads before the mind agrees to it. Most men never learn to send it. Fewer still learn to control it, and the ones who do rarely explain how, because explaining it would cost them the very power it gives them. By the end of this, you will understand what that signal is, why it works on a level beneath language, and why the moment you learn to use it, something in you will have to die first. Walk into any room and observe what happens in the first 4 seconds. Before anyone speaks, before names are exchanged. There is a silent recalibration taking place, a room-wide unconscious audit of who holds weight and who does not. You have been on both sides of this audit. You have felt yourself adjust your posture around someone without deciding to. You have also, at times, felt a room adjust itself around you and not understood why. This recalibration is not random. It follows a pattern old enough to predate language itself, one that Machiavelli understood with uncomfortable clarity. Men do not calculate who to obey. They feel it, and only later invent reasons to justify the feeling. Somewhere inside that 4-second window lives the signal this video is built around. It has nothing to do with size, wealth, or title. Men without any of those things have commanded rooms that men with all 3 could not. What separates them is not visible. It is something they are doing, or more precisely, something they are refusing to do. And that refusal is the thread we will follow, chapter by chapter, until it is finally named. You were taught, likely by well-meaning people, that respect is earned through effort, that if you work hard enough, speak clearly enough, prove yourself consistently enough, obedience will follow as a natural consequence. This is the first lie, and it is a costly one. Effort is visible. Explanation is visible, proof is visible, and visibility in the architecture of power is almost always a liability. The moment you explain why you deserve respect, you have already lost a measure of it because you have revealed that the outcome was uncertain enough to require defending. Machiavelli's cold observation was that a prince who must constantly justify his right to rule has already signaled weakness to those watching for it. The same law governs a boardroom, a family dinner, a friendship, a negotiation. Every unnecessary explanation is a small, involuntary confession. I am not sure you already believe this about me. And people do not obey those who are unsure. They obey those who have stopped needing to be believed. Study the people in your life who make others uncomfortable simply by staying quiet. Not through hostility, through absence of urgency. They do not fill silence to soothe the people around them. They let it sit, let it stretch, let it become the other person's problem to solve. This is uncomfortable to witness because most human beings are trained from childhood to treat silence as a wound that must be closed immediately. The man who refuses to close it, who lets the question hang, who lets a pause outlast its welcome, signals something the nervous system registers instantly. This person does not need your reaction to feel secure. That single signal, repeated consistently, is worth more than 1,000 statements of confidence. It cannot be faked for long, because faking it requires suppressing the anxious urge to fill space, and most men cannot suppress that urge for more than a few seconds before it leaks out as a nervous laugh, a fidget, an over-explanation. The ones who can hold it, who treat silence as territory rather than threat, begin to notice something happening around them that they did not directly cause. People start speaking more carefully in their presence. People start seeking their approval without being asked to.
There is a particular kind of deaf that happens gradually, in small conversations over years, and most men never notice it happening to them. It is the death of authority through over-explanation. Every time you defend a decision that did not require defending, you are training the people around you to expect a defense next time. You are teaching them that your word alone is insufficient, that it must be accompanied by justification to hold weight. This training compounds. What begins as a single over-explained decision becomes, within a matter of months, a standing expectation that everything you say must come with a rationale attached, or it will not be trusted. Compare this to the behavior of anyone you have ever considered genuinely powerful. They do not narrate their reasoning. They state, and the room absorbs it, because they have never given the room permission to expect otherwise. This is not arrogance, it is architecture. Machiavelli warned that a ruler who explains too much invites his subjects to believe they are entitled to a vote on decisions that were never theirs to make. The same is true of you in rooms far smaller than any kingdom.
There is a particular stillness in the face of a person who cannot be read, and it unsettles people far more than open hostility ever could. Hostility, at least, is legible. It tells you where you stand. But a face that reveals nothing forces the observer into a state of unresolved tension. And unresolved tension is one of the most reliable triggers of deference known to human psychology. When people cannot predict your reaction, they begin, without realizing it, to manage themselves more carefully around you. This is why the calmest person in a heated argument often ends up controlling its outcome, regardless of who is technically correct. Reactivity is information, and information is leverage handed away for free. Every flinch, every defensive tone, every visible flash of irritation tells the room exactly which lever to pull the next time they want something from you. The quiet signal we are building toward is, in part, this: the deliberate refusal to hand over that information, not suppression born of fear, but withholding born of control.
Earlier, it was said that learning to send this signal requires something in you to die first. This was not a dramatic flourish. It is the most literal claim in this entire script, and it is time to explain it properly, because understanding it changes how you will use everything discussed so far. The signal, the quiet, room-altering presence that makes people defer to you before a word is spoken, cannot be performed. It can only be possessed. And it can only be possessed by someone who has genuinely stopped requiring the reaction of others to regulate his own sense of self. This is the uncomfortable center of the entire mechanism. Every technique described in this video, the withheld explanation, the unclosed silence, the unreadable face, will fail the moment it is used as a performance layered over an anxious, approval-seeking interior. People do not consciously detect this failure, but their nervous systems do, in the same instinctive way a room recalibrates around a stranger in the first 4 seconds. What dies then is not confidence in the way it is casually understood. What dies is the internal dependency on being liked, agreed with, or understood in the moment. Machiavelli's princes were not feared and obeyed because they mastered a set of behaviors. They were obeyed because they had already made peace with being misunderstood, resented, and unexplained. And that peace, radiating outward without a single word, was the signal itself.
Most men will read or hear everything described so far and attempt to apply it as technique, a controlled silence here, a withheld explanation there, without addressing the dependency underneath. This produces a hollow, unstable version of the signal, convincing for a few minutes, collapsing under the first real pressure. You have likely met men like this. They perform stillness until they are challenged, and then the mask slips, and everyone in the room quietly registers the gap between the performance and the man. This gap is more damaging than never attempting the signal at all, because it reveals that the composure was strategic rather than structural. The men who never get there are not lacking intelligence or discipline, they are lacking the willingness to sit uncomfortably and for a long time with the anxiety of not being understood. And most people, when given the choice between comfort and command, choose comfort without realizing a choice was even made.
The signal was never a technique to be memorized. It was a description of what remains in a person once the need to be reassured, defended, or approved of has been quietly removed. You cannot borrow it. You cannot rehearse it into place overnight. It arrives, if it arrives at all, as the residue of a slower and more uncomfortable process, the process of no longer needing the room to tell you who you are before you walk into it. Most people will never do this work because it requires giving something up before receiving anything in return, and human beings are rarely willing to pay a price before seeing the reward. But the ones who do, the ones who sit with the silence long enough to stop fearing it, will notice one day, without ceremony, that rooms have already started to change around them. Not because they demanded it, because they stopped asking for anything at all.